The Stellar Horizons bridge fell silent as Captain Sarah Chen stared at the massive alien vessel that had just emerged from hyperspace. The research ship's sensors were registering energy readings unlike anything humanity had encountered in its century of space exploration. "Dr. Walker, what are we looking at?" Chen asked, her eyes fixed on the holographic display showing the crystalline structure of the alien ship. It seemed to pulse with an internal light, its surface refracting stars like a diamond hanging in the void. The chief xenologist adjusted his spectacles, his dark fingers dancing across the sensor readouts. "Based on the energy signature, Captain, I'd say we're dealing with a civilization at least type II on the Kardashev scale. The ship's structure appears to be grown rather than built, some kind of crystalline organic hybrid." Lieutenant Maria Santos, the weapons officer, shifted uncomfortably at her station. "Captain, their energy output just spiked. They're scanning us." Chen straightened in her command chair. The Stellar Horizon was humanity's most advanced research vessel, but it was no warship. They had basic defensive capabilities, enough to deal with space debris and solar flares, but nothing that would help against a civilization capable of harnessing the power of entire star systems. "Open all frequencies," Chen ordered. "Let's make it clear we're here peacefully." The communications officer, Jake Harrison, worked his console, broadcasting first contact protocol messages in all known formats, including mathematical sequences and basic atomic models. Tense minutes passed as the crew waited for a response. The alien vessel hung motionless, its crystalline surface continuing to pulse with that strange internal light. Chen was about to order another transmission when multiple smaller ships began emerging from ports along the larger vessel's hull. "Those are weapon platforms," Santos reported, her voice tight. "They're taking up attack formations." Chen's mind raced. The first contact protocols were clear: no aggressive actions, maintain open communications, and retreat if threatened. But something about this felt wrong. The alien ship's positioning wasn't quite right for an attack formation. "Dr. Walker," she called out, "could their scanning be causing interference with our systems?" The xenologist's eyes widened. "The crystalline structure, it could be refracting our own signals back at us, distorting." He never finished the sentence. The alien ships suddenly blazed with light, but instead of weapons fire, they projected a massive holographic image into space between the vessels. The image showed Earth, but not as it currently existed. This Earth was surrounded by massive orbital platforms bristling with weapons. "They think we're lying," Chen breathed. "They're seeing our research equipment as weapon systems, and they think we're an advanced scout for a military force." Before she could order defensive measures, the alien vessels opened fire, not with conventional weapons, but with beams of pure light that seemed to bend reality itself around the stellar horizon. The ship's artificial gravity fluctuated wildly as space-time distorted. "Emergency jump," Chen shouted. "Get us out of here." As the stellar horizon's quantum drive spun up, Chen knew humanity's first contact with an advanced civilization had just gone catastrophically wrong. The aliens clearly possessed technology far beyond human understanding, and they believed themselves to be under threat. The ship jumped, leaving behind a cascade of distorted spacetime that would hopefully mask their trajectory. But Chen knew this wasn't over. She had to warn Earth, not just about the aliens' existence, but about their fundamental misunderstanding of human intentions. "Harrison, prepare a quantum burst transmission to Earth Command," she ordered. "And Dr. Walker, I need you to figure out why their sensors interpreted us as a military threat, because I have a feeling we're going to need that information very soon." As the stellar horizon streaked through hyperspace, the crew worked frantically to analyze what had just happened. None of them noticed the small crystalline shard that had embedded itself in the ship's hull just before they jumped, a shard that pulsed with the same internal light as the alien vessel. The first shots had been fired, based on a tragic misunderstanding. But humanity would soon show these advanced aliens that technological superiority didn't always guarantee victory. especially against a species that had perfected the art of adapting to overcome seemingly impossible odds. Fleet Admiral James Rodriguez stood before the holographic display in Earth Command's war room, studying the crystalline shard recovered from the stellar horizon. 3 months had passed since Captain Chen's disastrous first contact, and in that time, the alien force, now known as the Crystalline Collective, had pushed steadily toward Earth's outer colonies. "Show me the simulation again," he ordered. The AI rendered a tactical display showing the collective's battle formations. Their massive ships moved with perfect geometric precision, their smaller escorts arranged in complex crystalline patterns that seemed to amplify their reality-bending weapons. Dr. Walker, now serving as Earth Command's chief Xenology advisor, stepped forward. "We've finally decoded their sensor patterns. Their entire civilization is based on crystalline computing. They see the universe as mathematical perfection. Our quantum technology reads as chaos to their sensors, making them interpret everything we do as a potential weapon." Lieutenant Commander Priya Patel, the fleet's tactical officer, zoomed in on a section of the display. "Their formations aren't just tactical, sir. They're creating massive crystalline lattices in space, using geometry itself as a weapon." Rodriguez nodded slowly, remembering his grandfather's stories about fighting guerrilla wars in dense urban environments. Sometimes the biggest weakness of a superior force was its own perfection. "What if we introduced some chaos into their lattice?" he mused. Patel's eyes lit up. "Sir, the new Hornet-class corvettes." "Exactly." Rodriguez manipulated the hologram, showing Earth's latest ship design. The Hornets were tiny compared to traditional warships, barely larger than ancient seafaring patrol boats. But they packed experimental quantum drives that could execute micro-jumps with unprecedented precision. "Dr. Walker, you said their civilization sees everything as patterns. What happens to a crystal when you introduce a flaw into its structure?" The xenologist smiled for the first time in months. "It shatters, Admiral." Over the next week, Earth's shipyards worked at full capacity, converting their production lines from traditional warships to swarms of Hornet corvettes. Each ship was crewed by just 3 people: pilot, weapons officer, and quantum engineer. They trained in complex asymmetric maneuvers that would have been impossible for larger vessels. The collective's next push came at Proxima Centauri. Their crystalline ships emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, their lattice already forming to unleash their reality-warping weapons. They never got the chance. Hundreds of Hornet corvettes dropped out of quantum space at seemingly random points throughout their formation. The tiny ships executed split-second micro-jumps, appearing and disappearing faster than the collective's geometric targeting systems could track. "Like throwing sand into a precision machine," Rodriguez murmured, watching the battle unfold. Each Hornet carried a single weapon, a quantum resonator designed to match the frequency of the collective's crystalline hulls. One hit wouldn't do much damage, but hundreds of hits at seemingly random points in their perfect lattice. The first collective ship shattered like a wine glass hit with exactly the right frequency. The destruction cascaded through their formation as their carefully maintained geometric patterns collapsed. "Pattern recognition failing," the tactical AI reported. "Collective ships attempting to compensate, unable to maintain formation integrity." The massive alien vessels, suddenly unable to coordinate their reality-bending weapons without their precise formations, began to retreat. Several more shattered as the Hornets pressed their advantage, their random attack patterns proving impossible for the mathematically perfect collective to predict or counter. As the battle ended, Rodriguez received a priority message. The collective was broadcasting on all frequencies, not in attack patterns this time, but in simple mathematical sequences. "They're requesting communication, sir," Paddle reported. I think we just proved we're more advanced than they expected. Just not in a way they understood." Rodriguez stared at the tactical display, where the remaining collective ships had arranged themselves in a simple geometric pattern, one that Dr. Walker quickly identified as a universal symbol for parley. Send response codes, the Admiral ordered. But keep the Hornets deployed. Sometimes the best way to achieve peace is to prove you can win the war. As Earth's first formal response transmitted toward the collective fleet, Rodriguez couldn't help but smile. Humanity had just demonstrated one of its greatest strengths, the ability to turn apparent weakness into an advantage. The collective had expected chaos to be their weakness, never realizing it would be their greatest weapon. The crystalline shard in Dr. Maya Walker's lab pulsed with an increasingly erratic light. 3 days had passed since the Battle of Proxima Centauri, and Earth scientists were beginning to understand just how profoundly they had shaken the collective's worldview. "It's like watching a computer have an existential crisis," she explained to Admiral Rodriguez, gesturing at the complex patterns rippling through the crystal. "Their entire society is built on perfect mathematical order. Our chaotic tactics didn't just defeat them. They challenged their fundamental understanding of evolution and progress." Rodriguez watched a holographic replay of the battle's final moments. The swarm of Hornet corvettes moved like a school of fish, their seemingly random patterns concealing a deeper, more organic form of coordination that the collective's rigid systems couldn't comprehend. "They're requesting a direct meeting," he said. "No proxies, no long-range communication. Their flagship will arrive in Earth orbit within 6 hours." Maya's eyes widened. "That's unprecedented. According to the data we've decoded, the collective hasn't engaged in direct diplomatic contact with another species in over 10,000 years. Because they've never needed to," Rodriguez replied. "Until now, they've never encountered a species that could challenge their technological superiority through sheer adaptability." The lab's quantum comm chimed. Lieutenant Commander Patel's hologram appeared, her expression urgent. "Admiral, we're detecting unusual energy signatures from the remaining collective ships near Proxima. They're reconfiguring themselves." The tactical display showed the crystalline vessels literally reshaping themselves, their perfect geometric patterns dissolving into more fluid organic forms. It was as if they were trying to mimic the unpredictable movements of the Hornet swarms. "They're learning," Maya whispered, "much faster than we anticipated." Rodriguez straightened. "Get me Captain Chen. If the collective is really coming here for diplomatic talks, I want the person who first encountered them leading our delegation." 6 hours later, Earth's orbital defense grid tracked the arrival of the collective flagship, but instead of the perfect crystalline structure they expected, the massive vessel now resembled a living organism, its surface flowing and shifting like liquid metal. Chen stood beside Rodriguez in the orbital diplomatic station, watching the alien ship approach. "They're not just adapting their tactics," she observed. "They're fundamentally changing their entire approach to technology, all because we showed them a different way was possible." The first direct communication from the collective arrived, not in mathematical sequences this time, but in perfectly translated English. "We have existed for millennia, believing that progress could only follow a single, perfect path. You have shown us that chaos and adaptation can be stronger than perfection. We request an exchange of knowledge, not as superior beings, but as students seeking to understand a force we never knew existed." Rodriguez glanced at Chen. "They want to learn from us, even after we bloodied their nose." "No," Chen replied, a slight smile forming. "Especially because we bloodied their nose. We proved that technological superiority isn't everything. Sometimes the ability to think differently, to adapt and evolve, is more powerful than any weapon." As the diplomatic team prepared to board the shuttle that would take them to the collective flagship, Maya made one final observation about the crystalline shard in her lab. The erratic pulsing had stabilized into a new pattern, one that combined geometric precision with organic fluidity. "They're not just learning to fight differently," she said. "They're learning to think differently. And that might be humanity's greatest victory, teaching an ancient, advanced civilization that perfection isn't always perfect." The shuttle departed, carrying humanity's representatives toward a historic meeting. Behind them, Earth's Hornet squadrons maintained their seemingly random patrol patterns, a constant reminder that sometimes the best defense isn't impenetrable armor, but the ability to move in ways your opponent never expects. The collective was about to learn that humanity's greatest strength wasn't its weapons or technology, but its fundamental ability to challenge assumptions and find new ways to solve problems. It was a lesson that would reshape the balance of power in the galaxy for centuries to come. In the crystalline meeting chamber aboard the collective flagship, the air itself seemed to shimmer with possibility. Captain Chen found herself seated at a table that appeared to be growing from the floor, its surface rippling like liquid glass. Across from her, the first collective representative humanity had ever seen in person was a being of pure geometric light, constantly shifting between crystalline patterns. "We have studied your battle tactics." The being's thoughts translated directly into their minds. "You turned our greatest strength into a weakness. This should not be possible, yet it was. We must understand." Admiral Rodriguez leaned forward. "Your technology far surpasses ours, but humanity has learned that advancement doesn't always follow a linear path. Sometimes the greatest innovations come from necessity, from having to find creative solutions when you don't have overwhelming power." The crystalline being shifted, its patterns becoming more organic. Through the chamber's transparent walls, they could see Earth's Hornet squadrons maintaining their fluid patrol patterns. Several collective ships had begun mimicking their movements, albeit with less natural grace. "Your species evolved on a world of chaos," the being observed. "Unpredictable weather, shifting continents, constant environmental changes. We emerged on a world of perfect crystal, where patterns remained unchanged for millennia. Perhaps this is why we never conceived of progress as anything but a straight line toward perfection." Dr. Maya Walker, who had been quietly analyzing the chamber structure, spoke up. "Yet you're adapting now. Your ships, this very room. You're incorporating organic patterns into your crystalline technology. You're evolving." The beam's light pulsed brighter. "Yes, for the first time in 10,000 years, we are changing. Your chaos, it carries its own form of perfection, a perfection of endless possibility rather than unchanging order." The diplomatic discussions continued for hours. The collective shared insights into their crystal-based technology, while humanity explained concepts like strategic unpredictability and adaptive tactics. But the most profound exchanges weren't about military matters at all. "Show us how you create art," the being requested, its form shifting into something almost human-like. "We have always created through perfect replication. The concept of individual expression, it is alien to us. Yet we sense it may be crucial to understanding your species' strength." Chen smiled, remembering the drawings her daughter made, beautiful in their imperfection. "Art isn't about replication. It's about interpretation, emotion, seeing things in new ways. Sometimes the flaws are what make it meaningful." As if in response, the chamber's walls began to change. The perfect crystalline patterns dissolved into swirling, abstract forms, the collective's first attempt at artistic expression. It was both beautiful and somehow poignant, like watching a child discover color for the first time. Rodriguez watched in amazement as more collective beings joined them, each experimenting with different forms and patterns. "They're not just learning our tactics," he murmured to Chen. "They're learning our way of thinking, our creativity. And we're learning from them too," Chen replied, pointing to where Dr. Walker was deep in discussion with a group of collective scientists, exploring ways to combine their crystalline computing with human quantum technology. Perfect order and creative chaos, working together instead of against each other. The diplomatic session concluded with an unprecedented proposal, a joint research and development initiative combining collective precision with human innovation. But more than that, it was a cultural exchange program that would reshape both civilizations. As they prepared to return to Earth, the first collective being they'd met shifted into its most organic form yet, a symmetrical but flowing shape that somehow conveyed both order and chaos. "We came to your world believing we were superior," it communicated. We leave knowing that true superiority lies not in power or technology, but in the ability to grow, to change, to see the universe in new ways. You have given us a gift we never knew we needed, the gift of imperfection. Chen looked back at Earth through the chamber's walls, thinking about how this encounter would change both species. The collective would learn to embrace chaos and creativity, while humanity would gain insights into technologies they had never imagined possible. Sometimes the greatest victories came not from destroying your opponent, but from teaching them to see the universe through new eyes. And sometimes, the student became the teacher in ways no one could have predicted. 5 years after the historic first meeting between humanity and the collective, the Sol system had become nearly unrecognizable. Massive crystalline structures orbited Earth like artificial constellations, but they weren't the rigid geometric forms of the old collective. These stations flowed and shifted like living things, combining human-inspired organic design with crystalline precision. Admiral Rodriguez stood in the new Joint Species Command Center, watching a holographic display of the latest hybrid ship class launch from Mars orbital shipyards. The vessel's hull rippled with crystalline patterns that somehow moved like a school of fish, embodying both species' strengths. The Harmony class, Captain Chen, now Fleet Commander Chen, announced as she entered the chamber. Half Hornet swarm tactics, half collective crystal tech. The test pilots say it's like flying a living mathematical equation. If you told me 5 years ago we'd be here, Rodriguez chuckled, I'd have said you were reading too much science fiction. The chamber's walls shifted, revealing the familiar luminous form of First Contact, the original collective being they'd met. Over the years, it had chosen to maintain a more fluid appearance, though geometric patterns still danced through its light. We have received concerning data from the Galactic Core, First Contact communicated. The Nexus Empire has taken notice of our alliance. They view our evolution as a corruption of pure crystalline technology. Chen's expression hardened. The Nexus Empire was the oldest of the crystalline civilizations, so dedicated to mathematical perfection that they viewed the collective's original rigid form as already too chaotic. The reports suggested they were marshalling forces unlike anything seen in known space. They think we've corrupted you, she said to First Contact. That humanity's influence has weakened your civilization. The being's light pulsed with what they'd learned to recognize as amusement. They cannot comprehend that adaptation is strength. That change is not weakness. Perhaps they too require a lesson in chaos theory. Rodriguez studied the tactical projections. The Nexus Empire's forces dwarfed anything humanity and the collective had faced before. Their ships were pure geometric perfection, each one a city-sized crystal capable of reshaping space itself. We'll need something they've never seen before, he mused. Something that combines everything both our species have learned. Dr. Walker, now director of the Joint Species Research Division, emerged from her laboratory adjacent to the command center. I believe we have exactly that, she said, activating a secondary hologram. We're calling it Project Chrysalis. The display showed a massive structure, but unlike anything either species had built before. It was neither purely crystalline, nor purely organic, neither perfect nor chaotic. It was something entirely new. The structure's quantum crystalline matrix can reconfigure itself based on both mathematical principles and organic learning algorithms, she explained. It doesn't just adapt. It evolves in real time, creating strategies that even we can't predict. First Contact's form rippled with excitement, a perfect union of order and chaos. The Nexus Empire's rigid patterns will be useless against something that rewrites its own rules of existence. As they watched the simulation, Chen reflected on how far both species had come. The collective had learned to embrace uncertainty and creativity, while humanity had gained a deeper appreciation for the underlying patterns of the universe. Together, they had become something greater than either could have been alone. Send word to the Nexus Empire, Rodriguez decided. One last chance for peaceful contact before they commit to this path. They should know what they're facing. Not just our weapons, but our ideas. And if they refuse? Chen asked, though she already knew the answer. Then we show them what happens when you combine humanity's chaos with collective precision, he replied. Sometimes the best way to preserve peace is to demonstrate that your potential adversary has evolved beyond anything you can predict or control. First Contact's form shifted into a complex pattern that somehow managed to look both militant and hopeful. We will face them together, wielding both the perfect mathematics of crystal and the beautiful chaos of human innovation. Perhaps they too will learn, as we did, that true strength lies not in rigid adherence to a single path, but in the courage to explore new ones. As the assembled leaders began preparations for what might come, Earth's orbital rings glittered with the combined achievements of two civilizations that had found strength in their differences. Humanity had taught the collective that imperfection could be an advantage, while the collective had shown humanity how to find patterns in their chaos. Together, they had created something unprecedented in the galaxy, a civilization that drew power from both order and chaos, precision and creativity, mathematics and art. And as the Nexus Empire would soon learn, such a civilization was not to be underestimated. For in the end, the greatest power in the universe wasn't perfection or chaos, but the wisdom to know when to use each, and the courage to create something entirely new from their combination.